What's happening, y'all? How y'all doing tonight? Okay, I was thinking that tonight was Halloween night. It's not. It's tomorrow night. But anyway, we're rolling with it anyway because I've done set it up. Um, I'm going to go ahead and run the full length of Raistlin versus Strahd. Now, I had posted this to YouTube before after running this, but it was a rough draft. Had a couple of typos and stuff, so I tried to go back in and fix it. And plus, I added both those parts together when they were in two different videos, so we're going to try to attempt to play it all in one thing. So this is for you all tonight, okay? All right, y'all, bear with me just a second. Let me get everything rolling, okay? We're going to get it rolling here in just a second, okay? Hold on, just with me, bear with me real quick. Okay, there we are. Sweet. We's a rocking and a rolling. Okay, guys. Just bear with me just a second. All right.
She wasn't fooling. Tars jumped when he heard a hissing coming from behind the table, not from shock, but the fact that Strahd immediately dove at it with her wooden and steel stakes poised to strike. She wasn't fooling around, as even though the front of her blouse was black from all the soot accumulated from dusting the two vampires on the way up. The tablecloth underneath rustled, and the hideous over-wrinkled Kenda came scuttling forward and poked her head out, hissing at Tars and Strahd, as he raised the blue candle Raistlin had given him. Ticklemop spat and hissed, but seemed to be somewhat tiring. The vampiric Kenda had moved like a stiff paper doll in Sithicus. Here in Strahd's castle she'd suddenly gained the ability to move like a Kenda again. Now, after being relentlessly pursued and smacked in the head with a bag of shimmerweed, her attitude at least changed to surviving instead of trying to eat them. Hold fast. I shall not let this creature get away with what it did to that child. I warn you, Ticklemop. I will be taking you back to Fizban in a holy sack tied with reins to make sure what is left of you is judged or saved, or I will slay you where you stand when you attack us. Foul smelly disgrace. Betrayer and usurper of Kendakin. I will not let thee escape us, you little monster. Strahd. Tars pleaded, knowing himself it was kind of foolish to feel anything for this foul, insidious creature that had perhaps lured other real Kenda to their deaths, first for Soth and then for Strahd. Ticklemop's life, what it had been, was before the cataclysm. It pained and horrified him worse to see a member of his race be twisted and manipulated into something so evil and a mockery, but also so brittle and stiff and as shambling as a corpse from eons, perhaps, of being so bored on a moonlit night she couldn't do anything but wail and blubber beside her coffin. The hissing grew louder. Ticklemop started mewling and groveling as she cradled the cracked sparkling amulet still glowing in her talons. She somehow didn't seem to be interested in them at all, so much as she stared into the gem, her dead sickly green clouded eyes washing over in a mockery of what may have been infatuated wonder in her former life. She does not hear you anymore, Kenda. Raistlin's voice suddenly appeared out of the dark. He stepped forward once and tapped the staff of Magus right on top of the table as he heard her scurrying back down the length of it. He passively waited, not even bothering to chase after her. And do you know what Strahd actually offered this wretched one? A chance to go back out at night and feed instead of being required to weep beside her coffin. Raistlin smirked. How very Kenda-like, but then his expression changed to a hard wall of contempt. I am sorry, Tasselhoff, Barefoot and Strahd, for what I must do to this creature. In its current state it cannot be allowed to go on, for I have actually found why it exists. The child was not real, Strahd. It was a shade of someone from a memory, but it was used to compel horror in you, my poor Kenda, and manipulate your emotions. Strahd knew this, so the feeding you witnessed was another of his sick attempts to manipulate you. The other phylactery was meant for you instead of Azrael. No, Raistlin. Tars said indignantly. There are easier ways to do this. Suddenly Tars realized in actual horror what Raistlin might do if Strahd got in his way. Strahd furiously threw her arms up and turned her back to Tars while watching Ticklemop. Stupid duck weasel. Strahd squealed, Cousin Tars. You must not let him destroy her until we have taken her back to Fizban. He said if we do not return her intact we are to destroy her ourselves. Strahd huffed, insisting they do the latter and not kill Ticklemop, as she wanted to very much study this vampire Kenda as much as she could. It has been the key all along while Soth has been trapped in the mirrors of his memories, a light that once burned brightest in Kyrn reduced as a lure into the dark plains of dread. She has been used first by Soth and then by Strahd, but it was Strahd who initially led Ticklemop here, for after all she is why Sithicus retains its domain. The light left in her soul is the beacon from the prime material that draws unwary into the realms of dread through the mists of Ravenloft. As long as Strahd retains Ticklemop in his dominion, he can hold Soth back indefinitely. If Ticklemop ceases to be in this realm, Sothcanon will enter Barovia one final time to challenge Strahd, and the Black Nebula will indeed befall us. Barovia and Sithicus must have masters if there are none. The nebula engulfs all. Sir Magus Magia. That will destabilize the possibility of us leaving here. Strahd interjected. We leave the big bullies to fight each other and we take Ticklemop back to Fizban, yeah? Yes, of course, Raistlin nodded to Strahd de Morris. For a second Tars saw his slyest little smirk, as Flint used to call it, and realized the black-robed mage was up to something. For I to confront Soth or Strahd, we must give them an incentive to show themselves to each other. Meanwhile, dear Kenda, as soon as I do this, you must realize that you are to run directly back out and use the portal key. Fizban will be waiting for you in the safety of the sanctuary. Raistlin. Tars squeaked, you can't do this. That means you get to talk to Strahd alone, and sorry, but I got a few things to say to that fartbag myself. He's a fat liar. He tried to hurt Tanis and Laurana. They're okay, by the way. That's why the portal came in handy, because we got them back home. Me and Strahd are really here to back you up, Raistlin. We're Kenda. Humans always say we aren't afraid of anything, and now we get to prove it. You used the key already? Raistlin cocked an eyebrow and immediately grimaced in disgust. I have just enough ability to send any of you back again. Raistlin smirked. It was intended for myself, however, due to unforeseen circumstances either Strahd or Soth must be stopped. Only one of us gets to go home. Really? Suddenly Strahd realized what he was saying, and she immediately shrieked and started wailing as Tars tried to console her. Nain. I will face Strahd with you, but you must not kill Ticklemop. Strahd's bravery matched Tasselhoff's. She hastily undid her satchel and handed Tars the phylactery bottle they'd acquired from Azrael. The still glowing goop in the cylinder slid lazily like a lava lamp inside. Take this one, we already have back to Fizban. No, Raistlin said flatly. Tasselhoff will remain with me, you my. Young Kendamaid will go on to live a happy fruitful life on Kryn once more and remain. Nain. Strahd stomped her feet and screamed, no. No, Nain, no. Act. She started wailing and grabbing at Tars. I won't leave you here. I know you won't. Tars said. You can't make her leave, Raistlin. We promised my mom we'd save Ticklemop any way we could. And you will. Raistlin was interrupted by Ticklemop coming screaming back down the table, but this time she was looking at Strahd de Morris crying, and she started cackling. The room suddenly started to shift and weave. Tars felt a horrible sensation of blood rushing into his ears and then felt a sharp painful throbbing that made his head hurt. In an instant, before Ticklemop could continue mocking and laughing at Strahd, who was actually holding her own ears and screaming and complaining about not going, to even notice Raistlin slip his dagger along his palm and cut his own hand. Raistlin didn't bother to watch Strahd or Tars' reaction. Instead, Ticklemop, suddenly attentively aware that Raistlin was bleeding, sprang at him from underneath the table, snarling and foaming at the jowls at the opportunity to taste blood again. In one swift instant, as she made for him, he deftly caught her by the topknot and in an instant held her fast, screaming and clawing at him. Ticklemop growled and then screamed in surprise and pain as a brilliant flash of energy burst directly from Raistlin's hand into the stunned vampiric Kenda, causing its entire form to catch like a burning ember from a forge, her body atomized, and somehow Raistlin, with the same manipulative force he'd used to tear her in half, held a glowing dripping mass of yellow-purple goo, which he then, without skipping a beat, asked Strahd to hand him the other empty phylactery vial, the amulet which Ticklemop had carried. Raistlin tucked into the pocket of his robes, pausing only to mutter a few words to ensure it was indeed Kitiara's cipher. The glowing mass of goop made a chirping noise on the floor, and Raistlin held the phylactery out. The goop almost instinctively piled all of itself into the chamber as if to seek safety. But Strahd blinked back tears as Raistlin encased the glowing mass in the tube and released his control of the phylactery to her. What must I do with this? I am no Magus Sir Magia. Fizban said Ticklemop she can be saved, but you just really made a mess. She is all drippings and goo. I cannot ask her question in that state. You must not open this. Act, it is messy. Mine shoes. Eek. Strahd wrapped the phylactery up in a cloth and stuffed it back into the satchel, but she refused to put it back anywhere on her person other than carry it as necessary. This was stupid, Sir Magus Magia. I hope you know what you're doing. Cousin Tars, do we flip coins? Or do we go ahead and let this duckweasel tell us what to do? Author's note: my introduction to Dragonlance was a tale about Tars, a vampire, and Henry used a snuff can of Skull Bandit's cherry flavor asterisk as a coin to determine the odds. I got grounded because I stayed out all day. No, I didn't dip. Yuck. Sickest I ever got at 8 years old. Swallowed some dip juice accidentally when I tried a dip. See, our parents weren't casually worried about us picking up dipping or chewing tobacco because it was gross. Anyways, we used a snuff can. Redneck is Kender backwards. You have no other choice. Strahd de Morris, I ask that if you wish to honor your family and tell the tale of Tasselhoff barefoot, please do so alive. Raistlin winced as echoes of the Sotha's ghastly keening all the way from Sithicus as an ominous low wail of wolves indicated something was about to be wrong, echoed through the chambers of every inch of the castle darkness. Soth would be on his way to see Strahd as well, and that's exactly what Raistlin wanted. At once the droning austere echo of Strahd's pipe organ began to emanate again from somewhere in the castle, possibly an attempt to drown out the cacophony of the Death Knight Sotha's crooning. Act. Offense to Da ears, stupid lying fartgobble cannot sing. Strahd mocked, holding her earmuffs and grimacing. Strahd's not bad with that organ. Tars added, but then winced when it got louder, and then so loud he himself had to look at Raistlin and realize if it had not been for them being Kender in the first place, half the magical traps laid out through Strahd's castle would have killed them. From horror winking sad smiley. Kender are also highly immune to magic within the prime material sphere of Kryn, and to an extent in Ravenloft, albeit they risk the material danger of extended periods there if they survive as possibly altering them, and not in a good way. Go, now. Raistlin wheezed, Astu Zalem. The small crackles of a portal key spell began to flit into the dark space and open like a wide mirror. Tars looked at Strahd sorrowfully and nodded. He hugged her and indicated that she had to do so, although his slight half-Kender smile meant maybe he didn't entirely want her to leave him alone with Raistlin and Strahd, and not at least see Raistlin, to quote Strahd, smack his hiney. Yah. Back to the safety of the sanctuary beyond the grasp of Ravenloft, the island demoplane that Fizban had agreed to have them brought. DMS note: it is imperative you may or may not reveal this to the players depending on whether the PCs use a Vistani Seer crystal ball to send a temporary SOS out of the plane of dread space to hopefully get them home. The optional choice would have the players meet Fizban in the Outlands, so this demoplane of safety you are connected to. Once again, the concept of the portal key that Pez used in everything but the Minotaurs applies here. Remember he farted and they jumped into the portal? This also allows player unfamiliar with Sigil to be introduced to the Spire. As Sigil will be closed off to the players outside the normal channels, Tars and Raistlin are thrown into Sigil by Strahd no matter what. They are separated integrally to different parts of the aesthetic Wheel hub of Sigil. Whatever happens outside of these events as observers is up to the DM. The keening grew louder. Tars looked to see the portal now open and freely sparking. It looked quite beautiful and particularly interesting and inviting, unlike this place. Strahd was missing out on what was sure to be an adventure hanging around Strahd's dump, and he certainly didn't want her to be stuck bored sitting beside a coffin on moonlit nights listening to the stupid fart gobbler play his organ musics all night and wah wah wah. As Strahd put it, the room and the antechamber suddenly expanded and lit up as they found themselves shifted to an elaborate throne room. As expected, a huge pipe organ blared as an ominous black figure furiously hammered on the keys and sneered at them in contempt as he mashed on the final note. Tars noticed he'd not bothered to wipe his lips since tearing the seneschal's throat out earlier after Raistlin had also introduced the henchman to the phylactery vial he'd intended for them. The price of failure, and Strahd was not pleased. His face was now changed, and it was clear his vampiric nature was evident in how he found no need in being discreet or polite, as he put it, any longer. There is that stinking lying fart weasel. I see him behind that organ there. Strahd pointed and stomped her feet. Smack his hiney. Smack it. Raistlin smirked and with one hand reached around and grabbed Strahd. Tars immediately panicked because he knew it might hurt Strahd. Strahd squealed, however, as Raistlin grabbed the back of her pants and helped toss her into the portal. Luckily, in surprise, Tars did indeed see the bewildered faces of Tanis and Laurana on the other side of the portal, peering helplessly, but attentively, to what had just appeared before them. On the other side of the portal, the little Kendermaid was sent squealing and bawling into the waiting but safe arms of Laurana and Tanis. Not to be outdone, she tried to wheel around and jump back in, crying and kicking at Tanis, half elven, but also overjoyed to see him alive and okay and not turned into an undead or a vampire. She looked back sadly to see the slight awful sadness in Cousin Tars' eyes that she might not ever see him again, but also his nod that he wanted her safe and able to tell the story just in case, like his Kender dad, he never made it back. The portal snapped shut, and in that instant, Tars and Raistlin were alone with the Lord of Barovia, Strahd Von Zarovich, in all his full vampiric glory. You! Strahd sneered at Raistlin. I am lord of this realm of dread. I am the land. The madness of Soth has compelled me to take Kryn as my own. Why should I allow your Dark Queen dominion in my kingdom, a star in my skies, when she champions you as her arbiter, you as her hand, a mortal? A weak husk, who allowed himself a pact with a parasite of a wizard Fistandantalus. Oh yes, I now know who you served, Raistlin Magir of Kryn, master of the Tower of Wayreth. A red-robed mage too fragile and weak as a mortal to hold his staff. The gold skin and hourglass eyes, a curse of your pact to save you during your test of magehood. You cheated. Sly you. Ah. But you are no more capable of deserving your powers as a mortal, no more than I did. Your magic will become mine. I will consume your husk, and then Soth will kneel before me, go back to invade and make all Kryn my domain. I gave you a chance to get rid of Soth and leave my land, albeit with the price of the elf maiden for my bride, or the alluring woman within the amulet. Such prizes will both be mine again. Their life forces will sustain me and satiate my lust as a bargain for what I take if you do not comply with me. I shall drain your souls. Strahd sneered. You're ugly. But that's an impressive pipe organ, Tars piped up. He couldn't think of anything more fitting to say, as Strahd had a really impressive pipe organ, and he really wanted to try pressing the keys on it, but he also thought Strahd was a jerk, and the nightmare thing was him overcompensating and trying to show off to Raistlin like he was some sort of big thing. But Tars could spot someone who thought his crap didn't stink, and this Strahd was full of crap. He was just so full of himself. Vampire or not, he was just a stuffy, arrogant former human who, as Fizban said, there is a reason why humans only live about 100 or so years. They get too familiar with how the sauce is made for the stew, and they think they can sneak a few extra bowls for themselves. Don't get greedy, Kender lad. A rational person knows they don't need anything but a good heart and an open mind. Plus he was rude, plus he had lied to Tanis and Laurana about letting them leave. Strahd sneered and shifted his gaze to the Kender, who stood defiant, staring up at him next to Raistlin. He'd seen halflings of other races in his domain before, but these, Kender, were somewhat of an oddity to him. Also, they weren't afraid of him. Both of these things were problematic in his eyes, and that infuriated him. This little being had successfully evaded all attempts to kill him and capture his soul. Ticklemop was the last straw. He couldn't manipulate and control Soth without the Kender's link to the Grey Gem artifact on Kryn. Takesis had taunted him that the Grey Gem held the Kender fast to Kryn, and no matter of tampering could ever break their lifeline to Kryn, as it was much a part of Kryn as she was a part of everything. The enchanter had kept Soth distracted in the mirrors. Ticklemop entered his domain, leading others there over centuries, to eventually lure the greatest prize, Raistlin Magir, trick him into entering the mists of Ravenloft, and then destroy him once and for all, usurp the right to be the Dark Queen's arbiter of justice and invade Kryn. Or trap Raistlin forever in Sithicus to deal with Soth and succumb to his power once the Black Nebula engulfed the planet. Shut up, Strahd said flatly to the Kender. You could hear a pin drop. Tars indignantly started to talk again, and Strahd raised an eyebrow and said again, deeply and more insistent. Shut up. Oh, you go jump in a privy pit, you smelly arsed half-brain. Tars immediately flew so fast into Kender taunt mode that Strahd blinked several times in disbelief that the Kender was still going and not stopping. Raistlin himself smirked in memory, recalling a long-ago envy of his youth that he wished he'd had the ability to taunt and enrage bullies the way the Kender used to, and this time it was a little 4-foot Kender telling the Lord of Barovia to go suck a fart out of a nightmare's backside and then breathe it out on a torch like I saw this person do at a carnival one time. But no, seriously, suck a fart, Quas, you really are a piece of lying refuse, Strahd, and I hope you crap your pants at the most inopportune time. Although I don't know if vampires eat anymore and have to go, but if you do I hope it really inconveniences you because frankly buddy, you are a complete butthole. You are rude. Plus you can't even do magic even half as good as Raistlin. Magia can, he forgot more than you ever knew about magic, you hedge. Wizard, you couldn't carry Fizban's hat, which is okay because he can't either because he always loses it. I'm pretty sure if you touched his hat and tried to put it on it would explode you like a firework. That would be great. That's it. Strahd flinched a split second just in time to sneer at the Kender and move, but before he did Raistlin in an immediate act of self-defense uttered one word. Shirak. The staff of mages flared to life and Strahd defiantly grabbed a hold of it. His eyes burned with hate and rage as he towered over Raistlin with his hand grasping the hilt of the dragon-clawed tip. He leered in defiance at Raistlin and bared his fangs. The light got brighter. Astulath Lalaris a Lalarath. Strahd screamed at him as Raistlin uttered a few final words, the staff flared and a massive crackle of thunder blasted Strahd upwards as he and Raistlin held onto the staff as the concussive shockwave attempted to force them both away from the staff. Raistlin's hourglass eyes flashed in a contemptible silent sneer of satisfaction as he watched an absolute look of genuine surprise and horror cross Strahd Von Zarovich's face right before the inevitable happened. Garh! Strahd screamed and yelled as a tangle of blue electricity and fire snaked its way up the staff from the ground out of the top of the staff, and all over the left side of his body still grasping the staff. He let go because he was now a flaming torch. His screaming continued louder, and Strahd immediately broke away to zip around the room in an impressive shower of sparks and confusion and smoke. Tars stood and watched the vampire change forms almost 3 times in 1 second. Becoming a bat and realizing he was still on fire trying to get away from Raistlin has assumed a mist form, but wasn't doing a good job of keeping it stable because he crawled around on the floor now like Raistlin used to when he would cough up blood, his half-vampire half-human features morphing and twisting before settling again into an ugly feral beast. He was albeit now hideously burned and deformed. Strahd gasped at Raistlin in surprise and rage. His mouth opened and he attempted to speak, but his jaw gave way. However, it wasn't because he was disintegrating. No. Strahd was growing bigger. His muscles and limbs started to harden and take the shape of a massive ogre-like monster. He was still ugly. Dripping blood. Gallons of it. One eye was gone. The other gleamed with a red glare to match Sotha's. Raistlin and Tars watched part of the burned husk of flesh fall away from Strahd's body only to congeal into a mass that started to fuse with him and make him larger. The man-vampire grew until he was 7 feet, 10 feet. Massive amounts of blood and fluid congealed in a mass around Strahd's legs and arms. Raistlin held onto the staff of Magus and uttered the word Dulak, as if to mock Strahd. The staff winked out, giving the monster a second to process that Raistlin has just burned the living hells out of him, literally speaking. He tapped the end of the staff on the stone and smirked at Strahd, who was now limping, almost crawling back toward his throne to sit down and recuperate. His eye blazed with hate. He stumbled against the pipe organ, making it screech in an insulting manner with the pressing off odd keys. They'd humiliated Strahd. Yep, Tars looked at Raistlin. He's really mad now. Strahd made no motion this time to counter the Kender's chattering as he leaned back onto his already massive throne, and now having grown twice his normal size, Tars certainly had to admire how his back had already started to sprout a new set of bat wings. Actually, they were bigger than wings, like giant large talons sprouting out his back. but he couldn't quite get his body to coalesce past the raw burnt meat stage, being his eventual vampiric powers of regeneration at work. Tars was out of holy water and he couldn't ask Strahd to spit in the vampire's eye, her being a half-cleric, which would have been an exceptional idea because female Kenders sometimes can spit a watermelon seed, or anything the rate of a bullet. Aunt Magda ran a bunch of bandits off with a handful of sunflower seeds, allegedly. Tars didn't want to spit in Strahd's face because that would be rude and he was a Kender after all who prided himself on manners. A good throttling by Raistlin might have been enough to make him listen to reason maybe, but Tars doubted it. Old habits, especially after hundreds of years, are hard to break. No need to add insult to injury, it took all Tars could not to smirk and laugh at Strahd because he'd been so vicious and mean-talking when he appeared. A tap of Raistlin's staff, they go whirling around up in the air round the room for a few minutes, and now Strahd has to sit down for a minute. Dark Lord his Kender ass, this Strahd was an overconceited bread loaf all stuffed full of, well, crap. Well met, Magia. Strahd huffed, obviously out of breath, but with the attitude of someone who had just finished a fencing match or a duel. In his past life he had dueled and killed true men in battles to the death many times in an arena or on the field of battle. Strahd sneered at Tars and snorted, down the side of his face that wasn't burnt, with the huge feral ogre nostril, into his hand and flung it at the Kender. Shut up! Strahd huffed in the same breath and fixed his blaring red eye on Raistlin. The Kender gleefully dodged the disgusting gesture, still grinning from ear to ear. Okay, Tars said. Don't mind me, you just talk it out with Raistlin. I'll just sit here and try this pipe that Uncle Trapspringer said. Halflings smoke, of course I really never have smoked, don't really want or need to. Tobacco stinks. Flint would chew plugs of it and tell me the sweet expensive cubed kind was chocolate. Oh wrong it was, I threw up. I got him back because I peed in his ale, well not deliberately, I just went to go fill up the mugs, and just so happened to set his down slightly to the side on my way to the. Tars smirked and pulled out a pipe with a grin and stuck it in his mouth. He lit it and puffed like an inexperienced smoker who just got a hold of a bad cigar. 2 puffs in, Tars turned green, his eyes bugged out, and he coughed so hard he became red-faced and dropped the pipe, waving his hands and staggering around in a circle, retching. Hack! Wheeze! How does Fizban or any human find that even remotely relaxing? A hark. Oh, that is not good. No, name. Excuse me. Tars hacked and coughed so loud, it was echoing off the walls of the chamber as Raistlin and Strahd silently fumed at each other, perhaps not even paying attention to the Kender's antics other than a respite from their inevitable fight to commence once the other took the notion to do so. The reader should be aware, just like a 5-year-old trying a pipe for the first time, Tars doesn't smoke. He never smoked. He's gonna cough, choke and puke, like a dope. Kender are not hobbits asterisk in that regard, they like alcohol, but pipeweed asterisk on KRYNN is unknown. Some Kenders may smoke, not Tars. He never did and probably never will after that, and I'm pretty sure it's just tobacco. I grow bored, Strahd sneered. Of this one's amusing but completely oblivious reaction to the impending death I bring you both, once I've made my point. Raistlin didn't bother to counter or interject with something witty. He found his silent smirk was enough to enrage Strahd all by itself, and so he continued to let Strahd pontificate and preach, for the moment. These foolish creatures. Strahd continued. Your savior, this Fizban. Oh yes, your Dark Queen told me of him. He will never come to save you from my realm unless I allow it. So many thousands of lives have squealed their last breaths to Paladine over eons, what seems to mortals hundred of years asterisk, when they all succumb to my will to no avail. Your gods have no place here in my realm. I am the land. My Dark Queen cares not if I destroy you both, as it will indeed prove I am the master of past and present, for I am immortal, not you. Fizban is going to. Tars recovered long enough to throw a pebble back at Strahd, who hissed in annoyance at the tiny speck the Kender had snatched off the floor. You shut up about Fizban. Ogre face. Yeah, you look like an ogre now, like really stupid too. Fizban gave you the very phylacteries you carry to retain your souls, should you never return. Do you not understand, you foolish pathetic creature? He cared so much about you, he was willing to allow your friend Raistlin, once he had disposed of me, Dispose of the both of you so neither of you would be left within Barovia to be used by me. Once you had defeated me, Raistlin Magia, you envisioned yourself snuffing these little cretins like drowned broods of a bitch dog in a pond, watching them helplessly beg you as you ripped their lights from their souls and tucked them away perhaps to bargain elsewhere. Raistlin? Suddenly a horrible reminder in Tasselhoff's brain about who Raistlin was, and why he joined the Dark Queen reminded him that Raistlin was still a black-robed wizard as evil as Strahd in some regards. Were you going to really kill me and Strahd like you did Ticklemop if we didn't make it back? Were you gonna goop us? Like that? I mean, we don't have any more of those things to hold another, do we? To prevent him from using your souls as yet another anchor into Kryn to draw more unsuspecting ones into his domain. Raistlin didn't hesitate. Yes, and given the circumstances, Tasselhoff Barefoot, if Strahd does succeed in killing me and you by some chance are miraculously still alive, I'd have you do the same for me. We cannot die or remain on this plane. That much is certain if we wish to prevail. I don't need silly phylacteries to retain your souls here. Strahd bellowed. You will never leave my domain. Why would I worry about Azrael and Ticklemop being lost to me, when I have two more resilient fools in front of me? You have made my work that much easier. Strahd burst into evil guffawing. You filth. They are mine. How dare you? Holy moly. Whoop, sorry Tack, ouch, stop, okay, I know you don't like holy words. As if on cue, the looming encroaching darkness crept into the chamber, followed by an immediate flash of purple light as the familiar form of Takis' avatar sneered into a mirror frame, and burst forth in a cloud to hover before them. Tars breathed an indescribable sigh as he'd witnessed seeing the Queen of Darkness before, but she wasn't usually a nice lady, and this time she was really angry. At Strahd or Raistlin he couldn't tell, because Raistlin doubled over and immediately started coughing like he used to, and Tars had to look away for a second because Takis made him really uncomfortable to look at. She was beautiful, but at the same time the contours of her face made his head hurt like if he stared at her. Eyes too much, it felt like she could flatten his head and all out like a piece of bread dough and then bake it and bite a hunk out of it. Tars couldn't think, he felt his knees buckle. Like something making him hold still, which for a Kender is torturing anyway. Like being pressed to the ground with a massive hand. Stop, let me up. Hey, that kind of hurts, ow. Tar's eyes swam and he tried to look up to see what was happening, but everything got really dark except for the flaring visage of Takis screaming through a portal. Raistlin did not make an effort to light his staff as he was barely able to stand and not fall in the floor, his ailment which had plagued him as a magic user once before had suddenly manifested itself to render him helpless. The convulsions unable to make him do anything but viciously heave every time a word was spoken, like a knife. Strahd was not doing this. Strahd did not have the power to do this, the Queen, only the Queen, but why? He heard her speak in his mind. Silence, fool. He knows not of what he speaks. Raistlin felt himself begin to lose consciousness. He grasped his staff as he felt everything else give away around him. Strahd leered forward at the flaring visage, attempting to swat at it with his massive mutated arms flailing away. To no avail, he hit nothing and sneered in contempt. Bitch. This is my realm. It will always be my realm. How dare you allow this stunted husk to usurp me? How dare you allow Soft to slip away into madness? The nebula will consume your world as well as mine, we shall all perish within the oblivion of nothing. You are not my champion. Takis sneered. Bitch, why should I be your champion? When I can be your master, perhaps your god. Strahd hissed and laughed again. A dark one came to me and told me what you fear to lose. Strahd laughed again. I once tricked a maiden with a kiss by tossing a gem in front of her. She grasped the gem and then... No. You lie. Yes, Strahd sneered again. You'll not follow both to stop me. No. Strahd, you filth. A mortal knows not of the plains as you, will regret and perhaps even forget. Go then, coward, the plains will restore what is mine. If you have it, use it. I found a cage, with a lock and a key. Where even gods cannot touch you. Not unlike my realm, it's a cage. But I will rule this cage, you will never rule or escape the cage in which I put you, Takesis. I will rule, and maybe then you will understand, such a coup in the blood war to be gained. Gah! You filth! You will not. The blood war will consume themselves, along with you. We shall see. Strahd looked toward Tasselhoff and Raistlin, now frozen in time. He raised his hand and tossed a single black blood-red ruby onto the stone floor. It clattered, spun, and then melted into a spot of blood. Large rifts of purple light melted what was left of the chamber floor into a glowing oblivion. Takesis screamed in rage as a massive vortex spun her image away in a cloud as a massive portal opened. The bodies of Tasselhoff barefoot and Raistlin Magier clutching his staff were dragged into the maelstrom in a brilliant flash of color and lightning. Takesis screamed louder as Strahd's booming laughter echoed off the walls of the chamber. The face of Takesis contorted into an anguished scream, and then her eyes narrowed as the face dove into the maelstrom itself. The portal snapped shut, a deadening silence. Strahd exhaled a single breath through his jowls and satisfactorily yawned in a mocking contempt of what had just happened. Strahd was finally alone in his realm. Or was he? In that instant the form of Lord Soth materialized in front of him. Strahd sneered and rose to meet his opponent. The Death Knight made a salute with his sword and stepped forward to receive his challenge. The world exploded. In that instant the behemoth Strahd and Soth were now locked in a drawn-out battle. There would be no discernible victor, as neither had the power to completely remove the other. Sword clashed against bone and sinew, blood and rage and fury knifing through the consuming darkness, magic flaring, and far below in the valley below Strahd's castle the Vistani themselves watched in horror, as in the sky the image constellation of the Queen of Darkness, which shone so prominently, had suddenly blazed as if on fire and winked out. Around them an encroaching cold suddenly began to permeate all, a deeper darkness, a strangling feeling of nothing but dread. Strahd and Soth continued to fight on.
Alright, y'all, what you think of that? Pretty good, huh? Alright, that's that in entirety. It will continue, I guarantee you. I didn't really want to say anything on the Adam's Dragonlance channel about they were playing that Black Roses Bloom. All I can say is Ticklebump would have killed that whole damn party. I can guarantee you of that. She would have slaughtered that entire party. When he went to put his hand over that kinder's mouth, no, she would have killed that entire party. Alright, y'all, we're going to take a real quick break, and I'm going to be right back. Okay? Let's see what we got here. I'm going to close this out for just a second here. Okay? There we go. Hey, we're just going to leave it like that for just a second, okay? Alright, looks good. Alright, I'll be right back, guys. Just bear with me for just a second. We're going to roll it over here. Just put it in front of the dragon orb here. I guess we'll be alright. Yeah. I'm looking here, guys. Hold on. Just give me time. Oh, phooey. It'll do. Well, no, it won't do. It still looks like shit, don't it? Oh, phooey. I don't know, guys. I'll figure something out here in a minute. I just gotta get my camera pointed at something. Something parody. You know how that goes. That'll do. I don't care. It'll do. For just a second anyway. Alright, guys. I'll be right back. Just give me a second. Okay, guys, hold on just a second here. I got something that's going to give you a chuckle. This is just something that I was working on. It's part of that story. He goes in a second. You'll see. All right, let's roll it, y'all. Hold on just a second. Let me get it rolled.
The night hag, known as Ravel, took one look at Tars and immediately shrieked and scampered behind a gnarled tree that suddenly appeared to rudely block their path. Away with ye! The hells! Aie! A horrified ear-splitting shriek of desperation and confusion echoed through the rustling maze of Razorvine. A Kender! No! What trickery is this to mock me? Hide and it may go away to another part of the maze, let it picks what it wants to put in its filthy pockets here, he. No. Ravel knows Kender takes things away and don't put them back, they find things hidden away, they find keys, they blabber and squeal all the secrets, and the lady doesn't like the squealing of the secrets no more than when Ravel asked the question. What can change the nature of a man? Yeah. Blah blah blah. Tars interrupted. Forgive me. I'm sorry, we are kind of in a hurry because our planet is about to get swallowed up in the astral plane into like the negative planes down here, but the problem is that it washes a lot of garbage in that you lower fiends aren't going to like, so it makes it kind of annoying for everyone. Fizban was of no help as he couldn't cast a spell because he couldn't talk, and could only make grumbling noises and approving or disapproving eyebrow waggles. It was almost as fun as trying to converse with the Dabbas in Sigil, but like everything else, Tars had absolutely no time at all to stop and enjoy anything. Eek. Away with ye! Away, I say, the old gods torment me so by sending back to this maze to be reborn and die, and I be thrice damned again. Away with ye! This little bastard will break the ties of all creation itself if you let it. A Kender! Not in eons has I seen such the little vermin, never before had they ever been able to get within a sneeze of Sigil before being whisked out. Yet I sees one. Ravel shrieked again and lobbed another clod of dirt at Fizban, before turning into an extremely ugly ball-like creature with tusks to dash away into the rapidly congealing overgrowth of her maze. Hey! Tars shouted. Fizban lost his hat and we aren't leaving until you tell us where to find Takasis. Tars turned to Fizban. I mean, are you sure we want to find her again? She's rude. You clearly don't agree with each other, but you have to tolerate each other because she's part of you and me and everything, like Fall from Grace said. Fizban just sternly nodded and pointed at the top of his head to indicate his hat was still missing and he couldn't talk. You come back here! Tars yelled as the night hag squealed in defeated rage as the Razorvine held her fast with her snout poking out just enough to hiss and spitter. Few curses at the Kender long enough for him to get his new magical hoopak around her tusk and politely drag her out of the brush. Ravel assumed her normal form and hissed again, shoving the Kender's hoopak away, pausing only to squeal in protest and shock when it zapped her nose. The popping and smoking accentuated her growling, as she irritably sought to keep her back turned just enough to the Kender to not look at the magic mirror he had concealed in his right hand. Blast ye infernal Kender, ye little shits, unbanishable ye be, had it been a Kender vessel I'd done that on. No, not even Ravel would make such a thing possible. No. Unstable, the light from their little souls useful, but not here. Very unwise to let a Kender loose among the plains. They unlock and unbind things. They are a bane to the evils and the powers alike. A chaotic element. I already heard that too. Tars sighed. Trust me, Dakan is a Githzerai and is a much better person to ask on the subject about chaos and limbo. We already stopped by the Hall of Sensation, so if you please. Demand a boon of me? Ravel shrieked, and what be with ye have that would bargain for my help, if ye heard the tale? For lack of time, Tars irritably fumbled in his pouches and came up with a neatly folded cubed brick wrapped in paper and covered in cloth. It was a piece of raw Kenderpack star. Try this. Ravel dubiously reached over and sniffed at the thing Tars waved in front of her. She snatched it out of the air as he dropped it and stepped away from her. This. Ravel sniffed the dense packed cubed brick of dough and immediately gobbled it noisily. A treat. Yes. A recipe from long ago. Ravel's tone turned quite appeasing, albeit still growling. Chunks dribbled off her tusks as she chewed noisily. She picked a few remaining chunks here and there, pausing only to lick her talons with a filthy tongue. This is quite sweet. Oh, long ago tales of hiding in the forests, sweetbread cooking. Children asleep in the cottage as their mothers shut the shades to the howling wind outside. A night ride on my mare, riding on the night winds, smelling the sweet bread cooking on the fall wind as I spot a wee one lingering in the firelight of a field. Lost little ones left by their parents, a few crumbs, and I leads them to my gingerbread house. Ravel chewed the kender pack and swallowed the cube with a sickening gulp down her maw. Such sweet morsels, such sweet bread. Hey! Tars shook his head when Fizban irritably nudged him to snap out of it, as he knew sitting and getting absorbed listening to Ravel's scary stories would be his undoing, because she would trick him for all eternity into listening to a stupid story. A kender's one true weakness. You just stuffed your face with food by which standards according to the mazes you should not be able to have, so therefore you must help assist Fizban, and I find Takesis to us which we will leave this place. Go back to the prime material and you get to go back to the grey wastes, and do whatever night hags do. Doesn't that sound like fun? Everybody gets a chance to clean up their act down here, why not start with a more deserving person, you? Me? The night hag looked at him suspiciously. You lie. I'm not a fiend. How dare you? Tars snapped irritably. I know fiends are supposed to tell lies and untruths, but I will have you know that by the powers invested in me by the wards of Sigil, and the backup guarantee of the two most powerful parents on Krynn, my word as a Burfoot and as a Kender is solid. Right, Fizban? You get out of this maze and go back to the Grey Waste, and let's be very clear, only the Grey Waste. Not Lameish or Flotsam. You also can't go to Toril, Fizban, what is Toril? I saw this map when we were in the Clerk's ward, it had this world. Fizban clapped his hand over Tar's mouth to stop him from saying too much. The Kender irritably shooed him away. I know you can't talk right now, Fizban, but you have to let me handle this. Let me do this. I can get us out of here and back home. You gotta know how to talk to these people. Strahd was a bully. Verminaird was a bully. Tars gestured toward Ravel. She's just a cranky bored old hag, she doesn't get any candy or anything. She doesn't have any boyfriends to visit her with flowers like Takesis does.
Alright, y'all. What y'all think of that? Happy friggin' Halloween, as it may be. Be safe the rest of the week. I guess tomorrow's Tuesday, and I guess that's Halloween. But anyhow, I hope y'all enjoyed that. We've been rolling for about 48 minutes, so that's pretty good. And I'm hoping that it caught all of that, so we're rocking and rolling. Okay, guys. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And like I said, my channel's called InjunJoe. I'm disabled. This is OGL content. This is free for all the Dragonlance community to use. I'm not monetized. Okay? Alright. It was based on existing material that was put out by TSR back in the early 90s. And that's what all this stuff is. Okay, guys. Yeah, Spelljammer. See, you know how Margaret Weiss does the stuff with Firefly? I think you ought to have a stab at that. And that's where I'm going to go with it. Alright. But anyway, each to their own. This is InjunJoe, guys. Y'all be good, and thank you all for tuning in. If you're a Dragonlance fan, this is for you guys, okay? It's specifically for you. It's put out for you, and that's all I really have to say about that. All right, y'all. Have a good night, and we'll holler at you a little bit later. All right, y'all. Take it easy.